In the previous video, we saw how to create a GET connector. We used custom configuration, custom extension, operation, and also provider. All looks good and we got the connector working. Everything looks fine. But when I open this connector, there's something missing. Like I only have a settings configuration, but what if I want to add a custom configuration for this connector itself, which should not be reusable, and every get operation should have its own custom configuration the way this listener has. In the general, it's this path is specific to only this listener. This cannot be shared across multiple listeners. So we didn't write code for that part. So now another use case was pending, like we decided to create a post. If I go back to the canvas, we had two use case, a get and a post. So the post is still pending. So in this post, I'll cover how we can add uh, a basic settings, a general tag, the way it is there in the listener, so that you can add your custom configurations here as well, which is restricted to that particular element. So to start with, I'll go back to custom operations, and here I already have uh, a method get call. What I'll do is I'll add one method which is a post call. Let's add a method public. Again, it will return a string, and let's name this as post call. Now here, let me keep it. We'll create the method once, return null, so that we get rid of this compile time error. Okay, now it looks clean. Now I need a configuration for this, so I'll use the custom config custom configuration. See, now I need some parameters, right? The one that we saw in HTTP listener. And to get those parameters, I need to write a POJO. Before that, let's annotate it so that it can be identified as an element, alias. I'll name this as post, not a get, it's post, and name the media type. Let's copy and paste this. Media type remains same. I'm not bothered if it returns anything. It should return any, so I have put strict as false. Okay, so now I will let's create a POJO first, and that POJO will be custom parameters p. All right, now since this class doesn't exist, let's quickly create this class. New class custom parameters. Now what all parameters should I add? So since we decided to go with a post and we are using this API, so this API has a post method to create a user. So it accepts name and job. So we'll get this value from the end user, like the developer who codes this. So what we're gonna do is we create two parameters for name and job. Let's create two field, private string name and private string job. Alright, let's create the setter getters for this. Okay. Now again, we need to name this as parameter we also have an option to add a data view expression. Expression, let's select Mule, first one, and you have to give expression support dot supported. So this will allow the user to use data view expression for this particular field. Now we can also add a default value in case if it is not specified. We can also add default value, and that default value you can also add a data view expression, something like this, so it becomes a data view expression. But let's just keep it simple, and let me add the name as my own name. Okay, and let's copy the same thing and paste it for job. All right, okay, so I've created two fields. Now if suppose someone wants to add additional fields, what we can do is let's create a map object, and they can add their own key value pairs to it. So, and I'll name this as additional data. The other things remain same. Supports expression. Okay, and let's change the default value to something like, okay, so everything looks cool. Let's import map java.util. Studio stopped responding. Okay, let's make an import now. Java.util map. And again, we need setters and getters for this. Shift S, R, select all. Okay. We have setters and getters for additional data. So now that we have created our custom parameters, it's now time to go back to the operation class and utilize this custom parameter. It's parameters with an S. Right. So one thing to notice, you have to use an annotation parameter group. So what this it do is it allows you to define a group of parameter, okay, so which are sharing a similar kind of relationship, and you can group together. So we will annotate as parameter group, and once we have annotated it with parameter group, we need to give it an attribute called name. So I'll just give a random name configuration, or instead I'll say name custom params. Let's just go with this name, custom params. Okay, fine. So we are ready with the method here. Now all we got to do is just get the values, collect the values, and trigger a post request. So now to do that, to save some time, I already have the code for it. I just copy and paste it, and then I'll explain what's going on. Let me just paste it, and quite a few errors, mostly related to imports. Java.net output stream. Okay. There seems to be some deprecated. There is a deprecated import which is HTTPS URL connection. So that's a wrong import. Instead we'll select as the Java X version of it, like Java X. All right, so there are no compile time errors at least now. Okay, there is one return null. Okay, two return statements. Everything looks fine now. So what we are doing is I just initialized a variable response with null value. Again, as previous get, I'm creating the protocol, and then from the protocol I'm creating the URL, and I'm opening the connection, and then I've created a JSON string. It will have name, so I am getting the name, and using parameter I'm getting the name and job. So this is my payload that I'm sending back to the API. Then since it is HTTPS, we need to add this. Okay, then I'm differentiating with HTTP and HTTPS and creating the connection object accordingly. Like it's HTTPS URL connection, and here it is HTTP URL connection. So since I already have a connection URL connection object opened, I am typecasting it to an HTTPS URL connection, and then I'm setting the post, and that method request is available with this object, so I'm setting it with post, and I'm setting the headers with content type. Then I'm using a try with resources, opening an output stream so that I can write the object and push it to the desired API. Okay, so now that I've got the bytes and I'm writing those bytes and creating the payload, and then I'm calling the utility method that we wrote over here, and it's getting the response back like the previous method. And the same thing has been repeated for HTTP connection, with the only difference that it's an HTTP URL connection object as opposed to the previous HTTPS URL connection object. So that's it, nothing complicated. Just that the code looks complicated, but actually it is not. So we are pretty much ready with the post operation. So we will be able to see a post requester now, custom connector. Now let me do a Maven install again. So MVN install. Okay, before that, let's change the version so that we have different versions with incremental versions with changing requirements. So I'll make it as 1.0.1. So it will be a new version. The previous version remain untouched. We can use that as well when required. So let me do a Maven install. It might take some time to install. So the build has been successful. Let's go back to the studio, and I'll navigate to the POM of my Mule project, and let's change the version. The version over here of the custom connector is 1.0.0. Let's make it as 1.0.1, and I should change here as well. So okay, so we have version 1.0.1. Let's go back to demo, and when I go to I see post. So let's drag and drop. So if you see custom params have come over here. So this custom params is the name of the parameter group that we gave, and it's grouped. This group is having job and additional detail. So we see some difference over here. Like we added two fields, job and name, but only one is being populated, right? So let's go back. Did we miss it out, or is it something that has gone wrong? Let's go back and custom parameters. Okay, name still exists. Then why did it not work? So there's a problem over here. Like if you give it the name as name, it won't work. Instead, I'm not sure why it doesn't work, but it just doesn't work. So instead, what we can do is we can change it to like something as first first name. So accordingly, let's change the. Instead I'll recreate the setter and getters. Just get rid of this. Or Shift S. Or okay. So the setters and getters are ready. Again, there occurs a problem here because we have used that object. So instead, get first name. Okay, still there's something wrong. Get first name. So everything looks fine now. Let's increment the version again. It was becomes 1.0.2, and I'll do a Maven install. Enter. So the build is complete. Let's go back to the studio. Change the POM version in the demo project. Make it as 1.0.2. Save it. Let's go back to demo. And now we have first name, job, and the default values have appeared because we gave the default values, developer and Vishwas. Okay, so now let's try to run this. I'm not giving any additional data. You can by expression or you can edit in line. Right, let's just go with the existing data because either way the API supports only name and job, so there's no point. And if we see the configuration, we might need a different configuration for this because host name is correct, but this is a post request, right? And it's API / users. So I'll create a new configuration. Protocol remains HTTPS. Host remains reqres.in. Base path is, let's go back, and what is the base path? API users. So API / users, right? So this will help us creating a new user. So now let's run the program. Save it. So the application is up and running. Now let's go back to this API and let's hit enter. So there we are. We have a success response and its ID that has been generated is 406 and the timestamp that it got created. So let's see if it's same as what we expected. Not sure we got a Okay, I think we have hit some different endpoint. It's not, or maybe the API details have changed. It has returned ID as 406 and only created it, but name and job it has not returned. So there could be the problem with the API. Not sure, but this is we have got a successful response from the API. So this is how we created a post connector, and we have got back the response. So also there's one area where we can make a few changes, like since we started with a logger use case, logger always have to run in an async mode. It should not block the running thread. So what we can do is we can also add use the threading mechanism to spin up a new thread to run this connector logic. We can use executor framework to do that. So that's it for this video. In next video, I'll try to add an executor framework and make this connector an async connector so that it doesn't blocks the thread and it runs parallel to the parent thread. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope this video, the series of videos might have helped you to understand the new custom connector. Thanks.